Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Hot Takes. Just the two of us today, myself, Lee Jones, hosting again, and we're joined by the voice of God, and he's got a face today as well. Andrew, how you doing?
Yeah, doing well. It's nice to actually get to be on the podcast instead of listening from the background. Yeah, with me here, I do a lot of the Valorant writing at the moment. So yeah, we're gonna be talking lots of Valorant and some League of Legends, the good old like Riot clean sweep.
Yeah, exactly. Um, just to do a random one, first of all, if VCT was to come to you, Andrew, and they say, right, for the next Masters or Champs, we're going to let you decide where it is in any arena or any location, and whatever you say, they'll greenlight it. Where would you pick?
I mean, I got some hella bias, but I actually probably would pick the Victoria Warehouse because Valorant has been there before. Like, I would love to pick the O2 Arena. I think the O2 Arena would go stupid. Um, Actually, no, I probably would pick O2, like, because they did Rebel Homeground 2 years ago in Victoria Warehouse, and it was really, really good. It did fill out relatively well, but I think with how big Valorant's gotten now, I'd probably pick the O2. I think that would be like a really, really like prestigious event, really easy to get through. Travel's really solid from like both the airport and things. So like logistics for people getting in is good, and it's really easy to get to if you're me.
Yeah, that my one was going to be just in my back garden, basically. I don't not bothered how many people can turn up. Just whatever's easier for me is what I prefer. Um, let's maybe we'll start with some of the league stuff then, get that out of the way because we've not got too much league, especially where like we're just in the middle of the splits right now. There's not often too much going on. Just a couple of things to touch on. Um, Firstly, there was actually tragically a passing of one of
Mm.
the first ever world champions or season one champions. However, if you're one of those that doesn't want to call it a world champion, that's fine. Yeah, Shushei from the first Fnatic lineup, 36 years old, which is like pretty horrible. Like that's no age at all. And actually was kind of like newer fans or newer watchers probably wouldn't know too much about him. But what you probably would have remembered is whenever anyone's actually seen pictures from the season one world championship, he was the guy that like had his t-shirt half off, and basically that was because he was cosplaying Gragas, who I don't know if you play much League, Andrew.
I'm not
Gragas
familiar
is
with Dragon.
a champion that's like he's basically just a big fat guy with no t-shirt, and his weapon is a barrel of alcohol, and he like chucks that at people. And this, yeah, and Shuche was basically saying after he won the championship that he wanted a Gragas skin um, of him, kind of starting the wave of pushing for world championship skins, which now is like one of the biggest things that happens every year when the world champions win. They get the skin of their choice, and he's immortalized in the game. There you go. There's his skin. So yeah, very sad news to have lost one of like the early greats of the game, and one of the early figures. There
Yeah,
you go.
it's kind of been a rough week for like this is obviously probably the peak of it. Like definitely very, very, very difficult news for like fans, but like across both Riot titles, we've seen a lot of like departures from both the games, the scene, kind of like things like this. Been a very somber like 7
Mhm.
days.
Yeah. Um, we'd jump across a little bit then with that segue that you started there, Andrew. Um, I guess the biggest one is Florescent
Yeah.
dropping out of Apex. And what was interesting with that as well, now, obviously, we'll plug ourselves here. So I did interview Florescent in what turned out to be one of the last games she played on Apex. And in that, she was saying that she didn't feel settled and basically didn't really have any friends in Europe, didn't like the food. And yeah, didn't seem like she was having a particularly good time, putting it lightly. But then also, what was interesting about the wording of it is the use of the word retires from tier one, and it's kind of a bit odd. Like it didn't look the way that she's explaining it doesn't sound like it's necessarily permanent. But then yeah, Apex said that she'd retired from tier one in 2025, which
Yeah.
sounds like she could come back. So it's a bit of a weird word in there. What did
I
you think on that?
I think it to imply that it's not like a definite, like complete leaving the scene, but she's gonna do what honestly is the really, really smart thing is to not try and like jump back in stage 2 and move teams. Like some players will, like, we've seen it with people like Verno. We've seen it with a bunch of players that have like left the team and then joined a new one at the start of the year. You know, Ye was bouncing around from DSG to Blood to Lead. And I think what she's doing is she's taking a full step back. Just be like, no matter what shows up, she did talk about other teams kind of giving her offers, and Apex were happy to let her kind of explore those options. But what they're going to be doing instead is to just write 2025 off and come back at it fresh. I think it's, especially with how difficult the transition has been to come into EMEA, I think taking that full step back to plant your feet, get adjusted, rebuild that support network, and then kind of like weigh up your options is a lot smarter in the long run. I think the fact that she said that no matter what, I'm not coming back this year, just kind of, it means that there's not going to be as much like cope and hope for fans that really, really want to see her ASAP. And kind of like makes it definitive. It's like, yeah, I'm done for the rest of the year, but I'm not necessarily done completely. Hopefully I'll be back. She did mention, I think it also means that maybe won't be going back to game changers even temporarily, or because Shopify Rebellion are still in challenges, obviously, and I think FlyQuest Red are also in game, going up to challenges potentially. So I think the fact that she's just like fully prioritizing like just getting her life back, it makes sense. You could kind of tell, you could see it in how inconsistent she was. She mentioned it in your interview. She mentioned it in some other ones as well. I think focusing on herself, she's only 18. It's a lot to uproot your entire life and kind of like come over to a foreign country. So yeah, resetting makes a whole lot of sense.
I was going to say that, like, she, not to like knock her in any way, but like she kind of had herself set up for the most difficult way to enter tier 1 possible, really. Obviously, like, being the first Game Changers player is not exactly something she's in control of. But then, yeah, to go to a new region, and I say as an 18-year-old, like, I think back to when I was 18, and I know what you're thinking. Lee, you're not only you're older than 18. I know I don't look it, but I'm a fair bit older. But yeah, I look back to when I was 18. If I on my own moved to a different continent where I knew nobody, like, I wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. So she kind of had it set up in the most difficult way possible to get into tier 1, I think. So it, like you say, it kind of makes sense. It seems sensible for her to kind of step away, regroup, and come back next year. Because also, about being a bit inconsistent, but clearly showed that she is comfortable playing in tier 1. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah,
Of
she had
whether
incredible
she should be there.
peaks. Like, you know, everyone talks Flor and Friends, but there were some games obviously where she was pretty AFK. You know, people like Avova, people like Batu really got to show up, but it felt like nobody was expecting her to come to EMEA as like her first team. Nobody was expecting it to be a challengers roster. It was a really, really interesting, like really, really smart move on Apex's part, but it was the sort of thing that nobody really expected as her first team. I could possibly say that maybe the plan was to have a good performance in kickoff, maybe have an okay performance in stage 1, and then use that as a springboard to get into other teams, which in like transparently did work. Like, if other teams were offering her spots, we don't know whether those have just been other EMEA teams or whether that was places like EG, which I think a lot of people were kind of expecting her to go to. We don't know exactly what teams were offering her spots, but the plan did work, in terms of get her in, show what she can do, prove that she can stick with tier 1, and then bounce to maybe a team that has better playoff potential. But just obviously, you know, the mental toll on being on a team that doesn't win when all you've done for the last 2-3 years is just win. It's gotta be rough, especially as a young player, and again losing that support network. So the idea worked. It's just, you know, not without consequence.
And that's a good point you make about going from winning all the time to losing all the time. That's probably something that's affected the team as a whole. Like going from challengers, the guys that were there with Apex before would have been the same thing. It's probably been like a tough thing for the whole team to kind of get used to, and then it just kind of compounds, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do one more. Yeah, we'll do one more League One, and then we'll jump back to Valorant. And this is just a quick one as well. So we kind of prefaced it last week talking about the Madrid roadshow that was coming up for the LEC. Yeah, that's the good thing about following the Riot leagues of both Valorant and League, that we get barely fuck all arena events, isn't it? So we take them when we can get them. So in the in the LEC, they basically had one of the regular season weekends in Madrid, hosted by Movistar Koi, who is like the most famous Spanish team. They were like the hosts with a home crowd. They also had Giant X, who is a Spanish side as well, and then Fnatic and G2, who are just kind of obviously the biggest orgs apart from that. So they've still got decent followings as well. We kind of predicted last week, it wasn't exactly a hard prediction, that it was going to be a success. So Movistar Koi have run their own events before with their own fans. They're always massive. It was kind of definitely going to work. And they got another one coming up in a couple of weeks, or not this weekend, but the weekend after, in Paris, hosted by Carmine Corp, which again is probably going to be a success. But the news that came out of it as well is that during the weekend, they also announced that Madrid will host the summer finals. So the one thing that the LEC has been doing the last couple of years is their summer finals will be like the one big event they do at the end of the year. Last year they did it, I think it was in Munich, which was kind of a bit of an odd choice because their studio is in Berlin already, and it basically meant that there was like nobody that it didn't get many fans in the arena, essentially, because people thought, well, if I'm going to go to Germany, I might have done it already, or the regular season or whatever. So it just kind of seemed it didn't seem like a special thing to be going somewhere different. Yeah, this time in Madrid, and there was a lot of immediate praise for that, because it was during this weekend in Madrid where the fans were, there was a great atmosphere. And my kind of hot take is that just I wouldn't expect, or I wouldn't guarantee that this atmosphere in the summer finals is going to be the same as what we just had in this road trip, or like road show that they did. That's kind of what the immediate reaction was, like, oh my god, the Madrid crowd that we've got right now is incredible. We're going to get that for summer finals now. It's sick. The biggest difference is that it's not one of these hosted like home team events. Like the road trip was kind of billed and advertised as a thing for like the Spanish fans, essentially, to come and see their favorite teams. Ibai, the massive streamer, was there. Yeah, so the point was it was very much geared around the Spanish audience to get them rooting for their teams that are there. If we get to the summer finals and none of the Spanish teams are there, then why the fuck is there going to be the same atmosphere? Like, it probably will be good. I'm not saying that, it's not going to be a fun time or whatever, or the crowd's not going to be good, but it's not going to be the same as them. Like in this road trip, the Giant X fans literally had a band with trumpets and drums going up and down the arena doing chants. Like I don't guarantee that's going to happen if that team isn't there. Do you know what I mean? So that was my one thing with it. It was just, it's good news, I think, and good news for me because I live near there as well, so I can go. But I wouldn't expect 100% that it's going to be like quite as electric as the road trip was. That's the only thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's honestly a really solid take. It feels very different. Like the road trip seems like it was a lot of like home stands where like, yeah, it's like fan led.
It's what it
Obviously,
was, yeah.
a lot of these teams are like streamer led teams with like Movistar Koi and KC. So like it makes sense that that's where you're going to get like the dedicated fan base rather than just being a location, unless they announce something that's going to be like a not partnership or collaboration, but maybe like co-streaming. They're actually going to get, like the native teams to have some sort of like media presence there, or like a show match or something. I feel like, yeah, it's going to feel like a Riot event rather than like a like Spanish League of Legends fan event, which has its own like hurdles, obviously. But I mean, like you said, it's a Riot production, so it's going to be a good time regardless. It's just, yeah, hopefully Riot in their big age of 10 years of esports, now they know the difference between something they run and something that is effectively semi-fan run.
Yeah. And to be fair, it's 3 days, so I'm guessing it's going to be upper and lower bracket finals and then the grand final, which would be 3 teams. It doesn't seem that likely that one of those right now is going to be one of the Spanish teams. G2 and Fnatic, well, to be fair, G2 and Fnatic should be top 3, and they were both at this road trip and did have especially Fnatic, like they had it seems like a good like Spanish core. So it's going to be fine. It just might not be quite as hyped as this.
Yeah.
That's all. let's go. Which one do you want to do? Tech issues, Paper X, or game changers? What do you want to go for next, Andrew?
I kind of like just whilst it comes to mind as well. We were talking like Florescent. She's not the only person leaving Apex this year. We're losing Governor as well. He's already given us some giga bangers, like taking himself out with his own ult. But yeah, Governor's also leaving Apex as well for health issues. So just throwing that out there as well, whilst we're kind of like talking all the things that are not going well for Apex right now. But yeah, I kind of would like to talk a little bit of game changes. I feel like,
Go for
you
it.
know, Sophie, you know, we got to carry the spirit of Sophie. She would be here and would happily talk game changers. But yeah, it's been interesting. The scene's a little bit of a mess right now with a couple of teams imploding. Which now the Riot's kind of like changed its approach. It's still obviously really focusing on game changers a lot, but a lot of the teams that initially picked up the game change, the teams are kind of pulling out. So you're starting to get a lot more of these like tier 2, tier 3 kind of orgs, which don't have that coaching. Like coaching and funds obviously sometimes go hand in hand. You're starting to see that there's really only 3 teams that exist in GC, at least in terms of NA, which I think is still the most popular region in terms of like viewership. Where it's like you're either Shopify, Rebellion, Gold, which is their game changers team, or like FlyQuest Red, and there is one other team that's also relatively popular. I mean there's even in EMEA the teams that are dynasties like G2 Gozen are currently in flux right now. I think the article has come out on Hotspawn about Petra leaving, which I don't think anyone saw coming at all. She's been part of the team for forever, basically. One of
4 years, wasn't it? I saw.
yeah, pretty much one of like the she was part of the first season trophy lift team, and now she's effectively leaving the team. She had to trial to get her own spot back and decided that she wasn't going to trial. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Like I wasn't expecting this at all, really, and I think a lot of people kind of weren't expecting her to, one, have to fight for her spot, and two, ultimately decide not to do so. So yeah, this was kind of a surprise. G2's been one of the more stable teams. They've been slowly bleeding their like championship team, but they finished first in the regular season and got third overall in playoffs, and that was enough to blow up the team and, you know, end up losing one of like the faces of their team. They still have Mimi, and their new player for the duelist role is incredibly talented. Like, you know, no shade to her or anything. She's got a fantastic opportunity, and I think Game Changers does need those kind of floor level players that are just like raw mechanics. We've seen Bob since the C9 White days. Um, Also finding success on FlyQuest, and obviously, you know, Mel and the Shopify Rebellion core have been brilliant since like day one. So yeah, this was kind of a surprise to me to see G2 kind of blowing up and losing out to KC and Giants, funny enough, of all teams. Uh, uh, Giants has Sarah, who's previously from G2 Gozen as well, and Glance is on KC. So yeah, G2 ended up losing to X players. And then yeah, the whole roster's exploded. They've got a new head coach. Should be really interesting to kind of see where Game Changers goes, especially as more teams are making it to championship qualifiers and actually making it through that close qualifier to hopefully start seeing a couple more success stories out of GC. But it's still a little bit unstable, all things considered, because if you're on one of these kind of like tier 1 orgs, your spot isn't necessarily safe.
Yeah, brutal. I suppose that's the nature of competition. Has she said why she didn't want to try out? Like, I know obviously it's a bit insulting to have to do that anyway, but I'm just wondering if like there could be offers elsewhere or anything.
So far, she hasn't said. Like, she did retweet the coach's tweet that kind of explained the process, like what happened with our stage 1, and that it was ultimately her decision to decide to not trial. I think she was going to trial. She said, like 10 days later, she chose not to trial, which ultimately means that she had to like resign from the team. And she's only given like the basic positive tweet and like, oh, see what the future holds. I imagine she's going to still be a relatively hot commodity. But I think Giuliano's tweet on it honestly really kind of like sums up the kind of place we've kind of ended up for this, which is that a lot of these GC talents are starting to be kind of these younger talents. Everyone's looking for kind of like your superstar duelist,
Mhm.
because those have been like the GC strategies are still really really solid, but where there's sometimes less of an infrastructure. Some plans are very level 1, level 2, and a lot of level 1, level 2 plans kind of explode if someone kills 3. So just kind of everyone's looking for their sledgehammer to kind of just
Mhm.
break down another team's kind of like set strategy. Which does mean you're starting to get a lot of these kind of like 18-year-old duelists kind of coming in and replacing talent. And, obviously Petra's a fantastic player, but there's a lot of cracked duelists coming out of ranked now, especially with like the infrastructure and game changes being so well received. There's a lot of women that are like really hitting the game hard, grinding, and just have some freakish aim, just like straight up freakish aim, incredible mechanics, and just willing to take fights that maybe a more experienced player is going to weigh up the, okay, so what do we do if this doesn't work? What's the backup plan? Meanwhile, someone's already Ferrari peaked and killed 2.
Mhm. Well, it's not even unprecedented, something like that from G2 as an org as well. This idea of kind of ditching like a known player essentially. Like they did it basically in their league team this year. Mickey X, their support, has been with them for like a million years. He's the GOAT EU support. No, they didn't get rid of him for like a rookie, but they kind of got somebody in that's not as experienced at that level, kind of in the hopes that the peak could be higher if we give someone else a chance. It's kind of one of those things. It's obviously risk and reward, but then the reward could be higher, especially if like G2 as an org always says about going for like world championships, world championships and stuff. If they want a game changers championship, Top 5 kind of got them locked down at the minute. Obviously, it might be different a bit this year without Florescent, but I'd assume that's their aim for
Yeah,
G2 goes in. So they're going to kind of try and take some risks to boost their chances.
Yeah, it's a weird one because G2, so they've been top 3 or better at every single Game Changers championship. Obviously they've won one of them. And that time they won, they weren't even like they didn't win domestically. They were the second seed coming into that event, and then they ultimately ended up sweeping. Mostly because I think Cloud9 White exploded. But yeah, like they ended up winning that one, and then they've always been a top 3 team. There's blood in the water right now with the absence of Florescent, so there's a real chance to kind of like put some work in. And I think it's stage 1. They're doing it early so that way they can get a player properly integrated, which I think is still kind of like a smart thing to do. And G2, yeah, they've always been a winners org. They don't care about names. You look at a player like
Yeah.
Shazam, being on that G2 roster and then just like, kicking the whole team to the curb. Ultimately, it's worked out because I mean, G2 right now, I mean, at the time of recording, are still in playoffs. They had a pretty much undefeated stage. Obviously, they are in the lower bracket now, which I guess my hot take is that this has been the weakest set of 1 seeds so far in Valorant. I think genuinely everyone that's come in as like the 1 seed into playoffs, this has been like the least stable it's ever been. G2 were probably a front runner that were actually expected to stay in
I was
upper
going to say that
bracket,
seemed like the
and then
most
they
stable one that could have been.
yeah, and then they fumbled. So yeah, this is definitely like they kind of EDG'd it in all honesty, where they came in first seed and then end up in lowers mad early. So they're just ruining playoff hopes for a bunch of teams. I
Yeah.
desperately want them to lose to EG. Not because I dislike G2 like a lot of people do. I just really think it'd be funny to see EG go on a run again. I love watching like I love watching like Potter's coaching. I love watching Ye drop like 2 kills around and everyone's like, Prime Ye El Diablo. But yeah, I think it'd be really funny if they didn't qualify, genuinely. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the only chance that EG had was if G2 stayed in winners. But we'll see how it goes. They've been an org that has done very, very well this year. Um, EMEA, I think we can finally talk about. They probably also will have a very strong 1 seed because Vitality
Yeah.
has shit the bed, for lack of a better term. They've got the super team curse. Like every super team does this.
It's weird. Yeah, it is a weird one with Vitality. Like, when I interviewed Safe, I tried to ask him about the roster move. He was like very kind of aloof about it. Now he probably could have guessed that I was going to ask about the the comments where I can't remember whose stream it was on, but like their assistant coach had said that there had been like not like personal issues, but players having
Like,
like
different
very
ideas of perfect Valorant.
yeah. Um, so he probably could see that I was going to ask him about it, which I was going to be a bit cheeky and ask it. But basically, I asked him like, "Why do you think it was a roster move?" Essentially, he was just like, "I'm not going to comment on it. Teams make moves, and that's it." And I mean that was after a loss as well, so he probably wasn't in the best mood. But it
Yeah.
just sort of seems to have gone. Yeah, it's all gone tits up, isn't it, for him? Like, I mean, kickoff looks so smooth now, and I get that a super team probably should look best early on when they're just like the raw power of their players is going to win over
Yeah.
when
People
all
don't
the
have
teams
set
are sort of getting their
strats,
stuff together.
no set strats,
Exactly.
no data replays are kind of like hard to come by. It makes a lot of sense that they didn't drop a game. The manner in which they dismantled everyone was, did actually give some proper hope for the super team. Like Heretics coming off that second place and just getting dog walked was not what I think anyone expected at all. But then again, none of us expected Liquid to actually make it to Bangkok. So EMEA is going to be a really interesting one. The fact that they've at least scraped through to playoffs is important. And hopefully now that we're finally out of Tech Wars hell, maybe that's also a big factor. Like, I know when you're kind of like the cream of the crop, you expect a lot. Durka was the first person to like go, what, fuck it. I'm not happy. I'm gonna make it known. And I think when you've got a lot of players like that expect a standard to be met so they can perform consistently. Like you could see them smiling and laughing when they were losing to Giant X. Like they clearly were not mentally in the game. Like they've already lost their first seed shot and all they have to do is just make playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually like when they end up qualifying that if they end up in the first seed after kind of just turning it around, it'll be really point to how much of stage 1 in EMEA is just straight up fraudulent.
Yeah.
Um
I think that will, like, if they can kind of turn that around mentally or not, like this moment seems like quite telling of like what the remainder of the season could be. Like if they kind of fumble playoffs now, then that's going to be like the pressure's like completely on in stage 2, and they would have shown already once that when things kind of go from when things get a bit difficult, that basically they couldn't push through it and kind of get their heads around. So I don't know, it's a bit worrying if things don't improve.
yeah, I would say since they currently so EMEA season it's just literally Fnatic and Heretic, right, for group alpha. Everyone else has played their 5 games. Yeah, so Vitality are the 4th seed. What this just means is if you're in EMEA and you're in group Omega, you are like, I must not lose. Because if I lose, I have to play into Team Vitality, and that is playoffs done. Because I think if it is literally just they're really mad about like the equipment and I think in your interview Safe mentioned that there's a little bit of like communication issues because of the different languages. Like if they've had time to polish those up, you would hope that it was just equipment that was the other thing that was in the way. And if they're, maybe it's a little bit of cope. If they're back on that kickoff form, it's a single elimination bracket if you'd end up in Vitality's path and you just need to stay in winners to have a chance at making it to Toronto.
I mean, it ended up quite brutal, the grouping, really. Like obviously Heretics have turned it around now as well, and well, Fnatic's already turned around now. And with Heretics and Vitality, it does look a bit disgusting coming out of that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope the tech issues are sorted. I think it's today, isn't it, that they're going to finish off?
Should be them
the last few matches.
It should be what?
I know
Game
Durka
2 of
tweeted
Liquid?
that. Yeah, I know Durka's tweeted that he's been happy from the playtest. So fingers crossed, because that last day was like insane. Like, I'm just lucky. I'm glad I wasn't going to watch it live, and I was going to watch it the next morning, and then I just tried to kind of skim through, and yeah, like 2 hours for 6 rounds or something when it is absolutely mental.
Yeah, it's just not normal.
I'll say, like, yeah, the credit where it's due, that the compensation for the people that were in the arena, at least ones that had travelled quite far to the arena that day. I mean, I wouldn't mind missing out on a day of EMEA Stage 1 for what they gave those fans. I'm just trying to find where it was. Yeah, so anyone that was in the arena that travelled, I think, more than 200 kilometers will get per person 2 more tickets for VCT EMEA, basically whenever they want it. €300 Riot voucher, and a ticket to Champs Grand Finals in Paris. That is actually sick, and the Riot gun buddy, obviously everyone wants as well. So, I mean, not bad. If I'd have been quite happy with that to make that trade.
Yeah, it's really, really sick. I think they also did a smaller compensation package for if you were under 200 kilometers, like maybe like between 100 and 200, just so that way it wasn't like you book time off work, but you don't live ages away.
But you only
Unlucky
live
buddy.
199 kilometers away.
Yeah, so I think there was still something where they still get like another set of EMEA tickets or something like that, but it's not like a free ticket to Champ. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because you can sometimes joke about EMEA being a little bit of like a Mickey Mouse region. Coming into it, we were kind of looking at, Fnatic wasn't on their game, so one of those giants is dead. Heretics got kind of memed on by just being awful during kickoff. It looks pretty bad when Liquid, of all teams, is kind of like your second seed. And then Group Omega was fine. Like, Flor was a big question mark for whether Apex was going to be from, an 0-5 team, or whether they would actually be able to fight for middle of the pack. Na'Vi is always a coin flip. So, like, EMEA was looking to be a relatively weak region. I think coming into it, it might have been, if you're a China believer, then EMEA might have been the weakest region, as far as a lot of people were concerned. But, I mean, here we are, Fnatic and Heretics, 4-0, looking absolutely brilliant. Like, it's really funny. We have an article that was talking about, like, oh, what are the mid-table teams doing to make themselves really popular? What helps them have fans? And now you look at it in Fnatic of 4-0, they just figured everything out. Like, we wrote that during kickoff when they were kind of mid. And now they're, back to that kind of like...
just Fnatic's Boaster's just the world's best IGL again.
Dude, I love watching
Off the flick of a switch.
That's my goat. I love him. But yeah, like, EMEA actually looks like a really strong region now. They actually look like a region that is fun to watch. Group Omega has been maybe my second favorite group across all of the VCT to watch, because the Turkish Derby is now the new longest EMEA map of all time. Like, the Liquid games have been really fun. Even like Movistar Koi and Gentlemates, some of their games have felt very close. The map differential certainly doesn't show it, but some of their games have been really, really fun to watch, even though they've not quite, got the results that either of them have been wanting. So Omega's been really, really tight. It's been a lot of fun. Pacific, yeah, I mean, Pacific has been a mess thanks to the Indonesian teams being good all of a sudden. So what? Paper X was expected to make playoffs. They didn't play like a team that was expected to make playoffs. I think it's actually somehow looped back to being a surprise they made it to playoffs.
It's a really, it's. I kind of feel for them. Like, I wrote a piece. I'm not sure it actually went up in the end, but I felt like a lot of their stuff from kickoff until now could almost, like, if you looked at each of like the losses they've had individually, almost all of them seem explainable, like, on their own. Like, in kickoff, I think they lost to T1. I think it was like DFM they lost to in kickoff. That was like maybe the one thing you couldn't really account for. Pretty sure they had like one map that was like a 13-1 or something ridiculous as well. That one, ignore that. The rest of them, they lost to like T1 in kickoff as well, and then they come into another stacked group where you would expect them probably to have still been top 3, but then suddenly Boom came out of nowhere as being like incredible, and then they had DRX and Gen G that they lost to, and they say, well, those 3 losses in the context of the form and how things have gone aren't horrendous losses. It feels like, yes, they beat. Oh yeah, there you go. Then they beat obviously Global and DFM now to kind of get the job done and make it through to playoffs, like limping through. But yeah, the problem is now they're in the lower bracket and they've got T1 as the first opponents, who obviously are Bangkok winners. So it's not looking too good.
It's a weird one. Like, Pacific has somehow ended up looking like a really, really, really fun region. Like that, going into it, if you were just looking off of like last year, you'd be like, all right, Group Alpha or whatever was supposed to be the expected like DRX, PRX, T1, like whatever, like Gen G, you know, those top 4, like it's a group of death. Boomer cooked, and you know, Boom ended up finishing with a ridiculous scoreline. Obviously, they're also in the lower bracket as well, which is really unfortunate. I think it was bound to happen. It was kind of an inevitability that this team was going to flame out at some point. And Genji being properly prepped for them and kind of cooking them, it kind of made sense. Talon were really fun to watch as well, but like this side of the bracket was kind of just Genji kind of taking back their expected position as a #1 seed. And you would have expected DRX to be doing the same, honestly, on that other side of the bracket, but RRQ have beat the fraud allegation. So we're getting an Indonesian team in Toronto, which is sick. And they just have to make it to lower round 3. So if Boom can beat the winner of Bangkok or, you know, Paper X on a run, then they also earn their spot. But Pacific's been so fun to watch. Like, genuinely so fun.
Yep.
I don't know if T1 will make it, though. Like, legitimately. Like, we have this problem in Valorant where someone will win, like, a big offline event and then just get cooked domestically because people have all the extra replays, or, you know, they're trying new things. I think the fact that they lost 2-0 to DRX in a slightly more handed fashion, like, obviously their games with DRX have always come down to like 2-round differential between it going 2-0 in either direction. So this kind of ending up 2-0 isn't super indicative, but I think if I was Paper X, I would rather see T1 in losers round 1 rather than DRX.
Yeah, because I was going to say as well, I mean, only assuming they both get there, it could only be DRX or T. Only one of DRX or T1 can even go through the lower bracket as well once they get to the lower semi-final.
All right, yeah, because it's top
or lower round 3 there.
Yeah, it's top 3. It was top 4 to make it into playoffs. It's top 3 to go to Toronto. Yeah, I think that's what's been really interesting about playoffs is, like, I mean, China, EDG, if EDG actually, you know, do what they're supposed to and, you know, win, then the region's incredibly boring. But luckily, our glorious #1 seed cannot do playoffs correctly to save their lives. So once again, they are there to stop Billy from getting to hop on a flight. This region has been the funniest one. Like Wolves Esports and shushei Gaming being your first like guaranteed players getting in is just so funny. Like Wolverhampton Esports is here representing China.
That would never not be. That would never not be funny.
It's so weird.
It's so bonkers.
I think that's why I like that's how I started liking the team, because like the novelty of Wolverhampton Esports does not wear off. But shushei Gaming with a team that I started liking because of how they play, as opposed to being Wolverhampton Esports. But yeah, both these teams have been really, really fun to watch. The players have really stepped up to kind of make it so it's not just EDG, Billy, and whoever goes on a run. For once, it's going to be 2 guys that went on a run, and presumably EDG when they dog walk Billy again in playoffs, as they always do. Well, I mean, Simon, the lack of Simon, this might be the time. If you're Billy and you don't make it now, I feel like you're never beating EDG in playoffs, genuinely.
Yeah. Well then, shall we call it a day today? I don't know how long we've been going. It feels like 45 minutes ish. I can
Yeah,
tell.
cheeky 40-minute one.
So yeah, let's wrap there then. Now, for those wondering again where Sophie is this week, she was supposed to be here actually. She couldn't make it in the end. But just as a bit of housekeeping news, from next week, I think, or I think we'll start roughly next week. We will be doing 2 episodes a week where me and Sophie will basically flip flop as a guest. So we'll do one where it's like League, Valorant, like this one, like the Riot titles, and I'll host those. And then yeah, the other one each week will be Sophie covering Dota and CS as usual. So this was supposed to be my last one with Sophie, and I think I've missed it now. So I'm never going to talk to her again. That's it.
Yeah,
Nice knowing you.
we'll try and figure out something where we can get like the whole gang together. But yeah, these have been really fun. I'm glad people have been enjoying them. The thing we always say at the end of them is like us on whatever you watched us on, which I think we're only on YouTube at the moment. But if this is your first hot takes, what's your hot take in the comments, and what did you like about the podcast? Will you be back next week? And hopefully you like the 2 podcast format, because I think the ones where it's a little bit more focused on the specialist works out really well. So hopefully that kind of translates well as well.
Yep. Let's crack on then. Thanks, Andrew. Catch you later.
See ya.